There we go. We're live as of now. So, yeah, how's everyone doing tonight? How you doing, Kyle?
Living the dream. How you doing?
Finally ready and happy to be home and get a couple days of sleep and much needed rest before it starts again.
I feel that.
I mean, you're leaving this weekend, aren't you?
Yep, headed to South Carolina. Where you just were last weekend?
Oh, yay. Have fun with that. Yeah, I was just in Orlando, North Carolina, South Carolina. Oh, screw you. Pleasures of being a roadie or a engineer with music bands that pay you a lot of money. Lucky freak.
You're jealous. It's okay.
No, I enjoy traveling. I enjoy watching Netflix. I mean, traveling. Probably don't want to say that one live too much, should we?
No, I enjoy the views.
Yes, I do enjoy. You get the better views in the aircraft. You lucky. I mean, are you?
I see the back of my eyelids when I fly.
Are you flying Spirit anymore? I mean,
I don't mind Spirit at all.
you'll never fly them again because they shut their doors.
Did they?
Yeah, their last flight was like last week or the week before.
Really? That's wild. I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, the last plane that was in the air for Spirit, they didn't even know. And then as they landed, the watchtower said, "Well, thank you guys. Thank you for flying your last Spirit flight ever."
That's crazy.
The
What's up,
crew
Steven?
had no clue.
I told you we'd be back.
Oh, of
Sorry it
course.
took so long.
We cannot keep doing this. I mean, this is awesome. The people watching us is awesome. We love all you guys. Now I need to find my chat so I could see the chats also. Comments and reactions. That's the window I'm looking for. All right, what's up? There we go.
Go join the YouTuber trying to buy it out. What?
Go
don't
join
follow.
the YouTuber trying to buy it out. All right, you got to give us a little bit more explanation on that.
Yeah, I don't follow on that one.
Ooh. Oh, you could post to all instead of just one of them. That's even better.
What did you say?
So on my side, I could post to both destinations: the Quantum YouTube page, or the H2O page. He has people donating. Oh, is it
Who
is it
is
for the
he?
Spirit? Is it for Spirit Airlines?
Let me find his page. One sec. YouTuber trying to buy out. Just Google that.
Ooh, I don't want that there. I don't want to see our faces
Oh,
twice.
it's about Spirit.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Okay.
that makes much more sense.
That kind of brings it.
Looking for
That hones it in a little bit.
I was gonna say, ain't nobody trying to buy out this little page. Our little 23 subscribers that I love and know by name.
Oh, I would sell it if they did it right now. I'd sell it.
But ain't nobody wanting to buy it.
Nah,
You
we need to
sell
get up
out
to.
to the man. Shit. Hey, censor yourself, Steven. Come on now.
This
We
is
don't use
rated
cuss
R.
words.
I mean, this is rated R. I think. Rated. Are you ready? All right. So,
Lord.
how long do we want to wait? Do we want to get started? What do you want to do?
You keep freaking doing that. That's weird.
Who? Am I flashing?
No, it's just like skipped out a little bit. Vocal track audio.
I'm sorry. Is this better?
Sorry, much love. I'm just teasing, Steven. I literally have probably the worst mouth out of anybody. I'm very impressed with how well I censor myself on a microphone.
No, you and I both are pretty bad.
Oh yeah. I just have a lot of experience talking on microphones, so I know when and when I cannot say incredibly inappropriate terminology.
Yeah, I have no filter. The little foam filter on here doesn't block out bad words, so it just doesn't work for me.
But we can say inappropriate words that aren't bad words.
Dude, yeah, we can. Have you seen a pink sea cucumber?
I'm terrified to Google that.
I'm about to show it to you. Hold on. Images.
Uh-oh. Are you pulling it up on live?
Yeah, I am, because it's actually something legit that you could look at.
Oh, God. I have seen that, but it involves
inappropriate. I mean, come on, man. This is some of those weird sea creatures. I mean, look at this.
Is that one in a jellyfish?
That one?
Right there. Yeah.
I don't know.
Why does that look like a pig fetus?
That's just weird. I mean,
all right.
Here's a whole tank of them. Those look like fireworms. Those don't look like sea cucumbers. All right, sorry. Let's get rid of that. Let's go back to us. Yeah, that was just something inappropriate to talk about for a quick second. However, I will say sea cucumbers, my #1 cleanup crew for my tank. I mean, you see how well they do in the 180. They keep that thing spotless. Except for all the little erasers
everywhere. Little tiny erasers.
Little erasers everywhere. Alright, so guys, we're going to go ahead and get started with this episode. Today is part 2 of our dosing deep dive. We're going to talk about methods, systems, and things that actually work for dosing. So, yeah, welcome back.
We're doing this one actually live. So if you have any questions, we'll be paying attention to the chat. We can actually talk about it in the actual... I'm going to go through later this evening or tomorrow and edit it. We'll release it tomorrow night.
Yep.
But, yeah, so... live, it is what it is. If you have questions, jump in. We'd love to talk about it.
Yep. Do want to take a second and apologize that we're a month behind, 3 weeks behind, something like that from when we said we were going to do our last one.
Yeah.
It's show season for him, it's show season for me, so we both have just been out in the world traveling, have just not been able to make it happen. So
yeah, we're gonna do better. We're gonna do gooder.
We're going to do gooder. We're going to do much gooder. Much more gooder. So last time we talked about dosing. Much more gooder. Last time we talked, guys, we talked about what dosing is. Today we're going to look into how to dose, the different types of dosing methods that are out there. Manual dosing versus dosing pumps versus Kalkwasser dosing versus the multiple different types of reactors, what they are, what they do, how they work, and what you need, what you truly need, and what your tank needs. So, Kyle, let's get your take on these. What's your overview opinion on dosing pumps, manual dosing, reactors? What's your thought?
It all depends on the longevity you're trying to have of your tank and what you're trying to accomplish. It really breaks down to how easy are you trying to make it and what you're trying to do.
So are you a fan of which one?
I like dosing with actual dosers because it just makes life easier. It is easy to kind of forget about it, so you still have to stay on top of it with testing and making sure your consumption versus your dosage stays up to date and whatnot. But I am a fan of dosing with a doser.
You need to hang your camera on your wall.
Yes, I do.
Sorry.
I don't have much experience with reactors and whatnot, though I really want to. I just haven't had the time and or energy to get into the reactor world.
Okay, so let's put reactors on a shelf right now. I want to get into those. I want to hear your points on why you want to get into reactors, what your thoughts are, and kind of why you want to. But I think we need to back it up a little bit, and let's play with the KISS method, the keep it stupid simple method, which really goes back into...
Flip that. Keep it simple, stupid.
Nah, I like keep it stupid simple, because I'm not calling people stupid.
Nah.
When you're at a trade show and you're talking to hundreds of people, if you say keep it simple stupid, they take it offensive. We gotta not be offensive. Come on. So let's keep it stupid simple. And let's talk about just the water changes. One of the easiest ways to keep your tank stable is by doing regular water changes. And this is the reason why all of your salt manufacturers, i.e. Quantum, Aquaforest, Tropic Marin, Seachem, even Instant Ocean and Reef Crystals. Heck, let's even go as simple as H&W salts. They all recommend you do a 10% water change once a week. The reason for this is it replenishes all those elements that are getting consumed inside of your tank. It also gets rid of organic and inorganic waste that's inside of your tank. So the question then comes, if I keep doing this 10% water change and I'm doing it every week like the manufacturers are telling me to, when do I need to start dosing?
The easy answer is when consumption depletes versus stability.
Yep.
If you're able to keep stability up with your weekly water changes, and when I'm talking consumption, I'm hitting the main three: alkalinity, that can also fall down into nitrates and phosphates, but that's kind of a little different in my opinion.
Yeah.
As long as your consumption equates to stability with your 10% water changes, there's zero reason for you to dose, in my opinion.
Yeah, and so
I'm not going to say zero reason.
Well, there's no reason. If you're able to keep your alkalinity, calcium, and magnesium stable with those 10% water changes, then you truly don't need to dose because the water change is replenishing all those elements that are being consumed. But let's take this to a different level real quick. Go for it.
Hold on. Before we move on, what about like amino acids and things like that?
Well, that's a totally different conversation. We're, like you said, we're sticking at the top three. We're sticking to the top three for this conversation. We'll get into aminos and stuff like that when we do our next another episode where we go into coral feeding and coral nutrition and stuff like that. We'll brush on that a little bit later in this episode as well. But I want to look more into why is there different salt parameters out there? Why do some salts have a 7.0 alkalinity while other salts have a 13.0 alkalinity? Quantum, we have 5 different salts out there, and they range anywhere from 7.5 alk all the way up to 10.5 alk. I will tell all of my newbie customers, and I know, Kyle, you do this at your store as well, all new customers that are into this hobby, we want you to do a water change with a higher and more elevated alkalinity, calcium, and magnesium. And the reason this is that 10% helps, that 10% consumption, or that 10% water change you're doing every week, helps make that consumption last a little bit longer. If I'm at 10.5 alkalinity and I consume and I drop down to 8 every week and then I do a water change and bring it back up to 10 and then I consume back down to 8 in a week's time, I'm not swinging into that dangerous zone for alkalinity. We all know alkalinity is good from 7 to 12. So if I'm doing a water change with, say, the mixed macro salt that's at 8.0 and in a week I drop down to 5, that's dangerous territory for my corals. As a beginner, I want them to start a little bit higher and then allow those elements to trace down to the middle to lower end and then do a water change and bring them back up. That's not stability. That is not what we're looking for stability, but it's a good starting point for your beginner hobbyist.
Okay. I'm glad you backtracked there a little bit because keyword there was beginner. Because when you get into your more advanced corals, that the 2 to 3, it's not DKH, parts per million shift in alkalinity is no good. That will, no 2 to 3 parts per million shift will kill a clam overnight, no hesitation.
Absolutely.
Just for example.
Yeah.
So beginner's key, but 100%, absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, and we're not saying just beginners. We're saying your beginner corals. So like your softy corals, some of your leathers, your GSP, your pulsing zinnias, mushrooms, Zoas. Things like that. Things that don't require alkalinity. I take that back. Everything requires alkalinity. That aren't as sensitive to alkalinity swings. Let's say it that way. That's probably the best way to say that. When should you go down to a salt that's like an 8.0 or an 8.5 or a salt where you're trying to keep your tank?
When you're going to introduce dosing and you're looking for that stability, not just a consumption rate. When you
Okay.
start noticing that 2 to 3 parts per million change in alkalinity affecting things, or you're taking that step up into corals, trying to go for your euphyllias, your LPSs, your SPSs, things like that, that are actually going to really navigate the swing from a water change or the swing from the lack of consumption or from overconsumption. That's when
Okay.
you take the step up to really trying to focus on that stability of the number.
Okay.
Notice I
So
didn't say what number, stability of the number.
the stability of the foundational elements. Um, let's talk the different types of dosing here. You've got manual dosing, which is obviously where everyone's going to start because they don't want to go spend money and money and money to go buy a $400 or $500 dosing pump right out the gate. They're going to start with manual dosing, and here's my thing with manual dosing is if you're doing your weekly 10% water changes and you're consuming and your consumption is getting to a point where you're swinging massively, then I would recommend dosing every 4 days. Do your water change on, say, a Sunday, and then a Wednesday do your manual dose. That's going to help keep that swing teetering, tottering in that okay range. What about you, Kyle? Because I know...
But at this point, you're still using your higher end, not higher end, I'm sorry, your higher level salt.
Your elevated salt levels, yes. So that keeps you in that where as it's consumed down to 8, you're doing a dose on, say, Wednesday, and it's bumping it back up to 10. By the time you get back to Sunday again, you're down to 8. You're doing a water change, bumping it back up to 10. Instead of it dropping all the way down to 6 or 5. That's keeping that swing a little bit closer. Do you recommend people just go straight into dosing pumps or start with the manual dosing and go from there? Or does it depend on, this is going to sound terrible to say, the amount of money they're putting into corals?
To me, it really kind of depends, because the big thing for me isn't necessarily the number or the stability of trying to keep it to a minimal swing. It's the questions of when are you testing, when are you dosing, how much is it swaying throughout that time. So when it comes to manual dosing, I'm still kind of an everyday kind of guy, and that time frame of the day needs to be consistent, because
Okay.
it changes. When your lights come on, your corals are going to consume more. When they turn off, they're going to consume less, vice versa, things like that. There's so many factors that affect that number that you really can't just kind of, oh, well, today I'm up early, so let me go ahead and test it and dose what I need to dose. Oh, I'm working late, so let me test it tomorrow night. Like, it changes so vastly throughout that consistency is really hard to follow. So when you're chasing that stability, it makes it harder on yourself.
Correct. And I agree. I say correct is probably the wrong word there, but I agree 100% with what you're saying. Moving into that daily dosing at the same time every day. And for those people who have swings one week, it's higher, and the next week it's a little bit lower. Say, like, let's look at this guy's example here with calcium. At the point, when would it be a good time to start dosing? How would one go about stabilizing this first? Well, this is going to come down to what your salt is, where that salt level is at. 1 week, you're going to have, say, especially this time of year, I don't know where you're from, water boys, but down here in Florida, we're having 60-degree weather at night and 90-degree weather during the day. So 1 week it might be in the 40s to 70s, the next week 60 to 90s. And that plays a big change on our pH because the way our houses are built for hurricane strength. So we have a really sealed house. Like if I shut my front door, my back door pops open at times because of how pressure sealed my house is. So that causes pH swings and alkalinity swings. The biggest thing I'd recommend for you for this scenario is test it the same exact time daily to see what your true consumption is. Figure out what that consumption is. Let the calcium get down to a level where you need it, and then figure out what you need to dose to get it back into there. What's your thoughts, Kyle?
And when it comes to calcium, I'm not a big follower of calcium. Like, for example, the display at the store likes 360.
I know,
calcium
I hate it.
to me, calcium to me is not one. It's going to be affected by so many other things that I don't, honestly, unless you're starting to get fallout from calcium or you're starting to get hardened sand or anything like that. I wouldn't be too concerned about it. I'd be more focusing on what's causing the calcium to change so drastically.
Right.
Be that it's a correlation with alkalinity, its correlation with pH. Something else is causing the calcium to do that. And that would be my concern, not what the calcium actually is.
Your calcium should not swing week to week. Unless you have a fully stocked SPS tank with some clams and things like that in there. I mean, even like you were saying, the display tank at the store, it's a 180 and it's probably 85% SPS and it doesn't swing. I mean, we dose a lot of Kalkwasser in there, which we'll talk about later. We do dose a lot. We do dose a lot of Kalkwasser in there, so it helps with the with the calcium in the tank. But calcium is not one that's going to swing. I would lean more towards your testing equipment, because depending on the type of testers you have for calcium, them alone swing a lot. So now let's get back to what you were saying with manual dosing, Kyle. You're a big fan of manual dosing daily.
Yes.
I hate dosing daily. I hate dosing daily because if I'm manually dosing daily, why would I not just spend the money and get me a dosing pump? Get me, say, one of these Versa forehead dosing pumps, or a Dosatronic, or even the Red Sea dosing pump, or even the Hydro systems. Why would you not go into something like that? Why would you manually dose versus getting a dosing pump?
$800. That's why.
I love your answer.
That's definitely why.
And there was no point in me showing those.
Cheaper.
Yeah, there was no point in me showing you those guys dosing pumps. I was just on saltwateraquarium.com and pulled up the very top product on there. So sorry, but excuse me, Coke burp. Is getting into daily dosing better? Is getting into automated dosing better than manual dosing?
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Why?
Because you can actually control consumption throughout the day. So, for example, if I'm dosing 20 milliliters of aragonite B for alkalinity, I can now schedule that and set it up to dose at 10 a.m. when my lights come on. So when my corals first are starting to wake up, they have an abundance to consume. So they're not going to consume from the water column. I can schedule it, the remaining 10 throughout the day. I can track it. I can follow it, really kind of dial it into true stability.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing is like we said, we dose Kalkwasser in that tank in our 180. We do probably 80% of the Kalkwasser dosing at night. And the reason we do that is to try to keep that pH swing at night stable, because Kalkwasser is really good for keeping pH elevated. So we do 80% of the dosing at night for the Kalkwasser, and the other 20% dosing is done with a 2-part solution during the day. That way we're getting all of our macro and micro trace elements as well, along with the alkalinity and calcium elements that we need to buffer those during the day as well. So do you recommend for people when they first start to go to 4-hour dosing or 8-hour dosing, or split their dose as much as possible? Go to whatever the minimum dose is of the dosing pump and let it go? Or what's kind of your play?
If we're talking dosing pump, split it up. Split it up. Follow what your local fish store is recommending, because they're the experts. They should be able to break it down for you in the basics. But I'm a fan of testing frequently throughout the day, following what your consumption is daily, and then not daily, but basically hourly, and then really kind of diving in so that you can supplement those corals during the high points of consumption.
Okay. Now we keep using the word consumption. Let's break that down for people real quick. So when we talk consumption,
it's easy. I like to eat.
When we talk consumption, we're talking, let's just use alkalinity as a prime example. Today at 5 o'clock p.m., my alkalinity is at 9.0 DKH. Tomorrow at 5 p.m., my alkalinity is at 8.0 DKH. That'd be a 1 point DKH of consumption a day. That is where you would want to find whatever alkalinity chemical you're using and dosed that amount for your tank to recover that 1 DKH per day. So, i.e., for, let's just say, Quantum's EZZ, you would dose for a 100-gallon tank, you would dose 10 milliliters a day. That would replenish that 1.0 DKH. And don't hold me to numbers, I'm just rounding here for everybody on this live. Just rounding, making it easy. But you would take that 10 milliliters and you would split it up as much as you can per day. So I use the Hydros dosing pumps. They do 43 milliliters per minute. So I would take and try to break it down at least 1 milliliter every 10 hours. Or 10 hours a day. 10 times a day to get that 10 milliliters. Sorry, that was hard. I was reading what you said at the same time, too. So I would take the 10 milliliters, split it up over 10 hours to dose 1 milliliter an hour for the tank. That would catch up for the consumption throughout that day. And same thing with all the elements, whether it's magnesium, calcium, alkalinity. Those are the biggest 3 that we test as consumption. Now, there is macro and micro trace elements that you have to do with ICP testing that people do go into looking at dailies and stuff like that, but that is a whole totally another conversation we'll have.
But that's actually a great, you didn't intend for it, but that's a great thing to move into the Alpha Reef, the EZE, the EZZ, the 2 parts, the all-in-one dosings, because they are actually going to, and I specifically am going to talk Quantum EZE and EZZ here, they are specifically going to compensate for the things that we don't test in the consumption of iodine, nickel, copper, uranium, all of the things that we don't test as humans on a daily basis. They're going to keep it in a general abouts the way number.
Yeah, and same thing for Alpha.
Diving deeper.
Yeah, and same thing for Alpha Reef. What you're going to do for like Alpha Reef by Tropic Marin is take and figure out what your consumption is for the calcium or the alkalinity, whichever one you're following, and then you're going to dose it according to their directions. And it's going to replenish your trace elements along with your macro trace elements at the same time if you're doing that one dose. Depending on which brand you go off of is going to depend on the quantity of macro and micro trace elements that you're getting. I.e., every single tank in the world, just like every human in the world, consumes everything differently. No human eats 5 chicken nuggets a day, and that's their entire consumption. No, it changes per person per tank. So my tank might like Alpha Reef because it's been on Alpha Reef forever and I'm consuming exactly and it's working. I'm not having to go back and add potassium or calcium or buffer it with alkalinity or anything. Your tank, Kyle, might like EZE and EZZ, which is a 2-part, which allows you to separate that alkalinity and that calcium. That way you can dose for what your alkalinity consumption is, and you can dose for what your calcium consumption is. Same thing with Seachem Fusion 1, Brightwell's Code A, Code B. There's a lot of different 2-parts out there, but they all work differently than each other. It just depends on the amount of trace elements that are in there.
But you are technically trading control for convenience.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. That's the whole point of dosing pumps, is the convenience. It truly is the convenience of my tank's getting everything it needs, and I'm testing it based on calcium, and I'm testing it based on alkalinity. Now, you say 2-part Alpha Reef, what about the companies that have like the balling method? It's 6 different elements. Well, when we go into that, we can truly start dialing in. I can dial in calcium. I can dial in magnesium because one of the other elements they add is magnesium with like sulfur and other trace elements. But then I could truly start dialing in I could truly start dialing in like my potassium, my iodine, and my certain metals in the tank. But that means I need 6 dosing pumps or 7 dosing pumps versus 4. Or 3, or right. 2, and or 1.
There's 2 main reasons you would actually do that. I want to tickle on that just a smidgen. Your your metals, your iodine, your potassium, your things like that's what's really going to drive your color. That's really where your consumption comes in on those, is color. And that's where a lot of the people doing the bombing method are going to really start pushing reds for potassium, for example. They notice their reds are starting to dwindle. They'll send out an ICP, notice their potassium's low. The balming method actually allows you to individually dose the potassium to start boosting the red.
Well, Matt, so let me
red, right? Hold up.
Yeah, let me correct you there. Okay. So not just the potassium. What it does for like ours is when you look at the bottle, it's based by color. So biocalium is our potassium agent, but it's also got all your other elements that coincide with potassium as well. That's the thing about the balling method, is it gives you everything that's needed to support potassium growth or potassium consumption. If you go to the Biogen, it's everything goes with your iodine consumption, all your halogens that go with those guys. Same thing with the biometals, which is the purples and blues.
Greens.
And then like the biometals is greens, that goes into your metals. That's actually why so many tanks are green, is because they're actually elevated in metals. People don't realize it. Uranium, zinc, nickel, copper, things like that we normally won't see in a reef tank, they're actually there in micro levels. And they need to be there. It actually helps with zooxanthellae consumption. So now, let's switch gears. You talked about... Oh, hold on. Let's back up one thing. So now, there is another method out there, the advanced methods. These are the methods where you actually go into dosing each and every single trace element out there. Manganese, rubidium, uranium, molybdenum, manganese... I said that one. Iodine, vanadium. There's some companies say there's 14 that matter. Some companies say there's 40 that matter. But this is where you truly have to get into ICP testing and truly go into what is each one of these elements, what's the range, where do I need them, and what do I need to dose. But this is where you're sending off an ICP test that takes 5 to 7 days for you to get a response back. So it's not going to be exact, but it's going to get you really, really, really freaking close. Now, this is where you do need a lot of time, a lot of patience, but your tank will be gorgeous. Thoughts?
Yeah, I don't have much experience on that, so I'm not even gonna sit here and try and BS anybody. To me, I think it kind of fits the category of how nerdy do you want to be.
Exactly.
And how deep do you want to dive into it? Because I have seen absolutely stunning tanks on Alpha Reef. I have seen stunning tanks on Moonshiners. I have it really just depends on what you're doing and how involved you want to be.
And I want to throw one other thing out there on this same topic is, you said it, you could do how involved you want to be. I like to go into it as, how much time do I want to spend on this hobby? Also, how much money do I want to spend?
Yes.
Because we're talking dosing 1 to 2 elements, like Alpha Reef or the 2 parts, or even 6 elements if I really want to get into the balling method style. But then we're going into 20, 30, some companies even 45 different individual elements that you have to do daily with a doser and a dropper. Do I want to spend an hour a day doing my daily doses? And here's the other thing. Once you start doing that and you quit doing it, your corals are used to it. They're going to go through a stress period to come off of it. Mm-hmm. I know hundreds, maybe even thousands of people that have been on the Moonshiners method or even our ICP signature series, where they loved it. It was great. They had beautiful tanks, but it just became too much for them. And they wanted to have a life with their kids and their family, and they backed off of it to the balling method, and their tanks suffered. Mm-hmm. So, all right, let's get off of that topic now, because I go on that one for days about why to or not to do it. But let's go into what's your question about reactors? What's your question about reactors? What's your thoughts?
Reactors scare me. They scare me a lot when you start talking. I mean, you can talk GFO reactors. You can talk, what's the other word? Carbon reactors. You can talk all those kind of things. That's not in my brain part of dosing. But when you start talking calcium reactors and things like that, I fall out of it because it scares me with the idea of how do I control it? I'm a man of control. I'm a man of liking to see everything and being able to adjust it to the minute detail. And with reactors, to me, and it might be my ignorance, so if anyone can prove me wrong, please do so. But to me, it's just losing control. That's why I'm not a fan of GFO reactors, calcium reactors, and things like that. But I'm not going to try and feign ignorance here.
Yeah, so when it comes to reactors, a lot of people don't do reactors on small tanks. And let's change this conversation a little bit. You said GFO things a lot. We're staying with the alkalinity, calcium, and magnesium topic here, and pH. I don't want to go into GFO, algae reactors, phosphate reactors, things like that. I truly want to stay for this conversation. We're going to talk kalkwasser reactors, calc stirrers, and CO2 reactors and CO2 canisters. So calcium reactors instead of CO2. Sorry.
Yeah.
Let's stay on that conversation to kind of answer. I want to piggyback real quick to Perry Reef's question before we really go into the new topic. It was, if you're dosing all the elements, would you start as soon as the tank cycles, or when would you start to dose that much? If I'm going to go into the full Reef Moonshiners method, I would wait until my tank cycled. I would pick my salt that I'm going to be stable with, that I'm going to continue to use forever. As soon as I start adding corals in there, I would send off an ICP test immediately just to see what my base is. And then as I get 10 to 15 corals in there, I would send off another ICP to see what that consumption looks like. If you want to go with that route.
Pending the salt you use, I would probably early on send out an ICP of just the salt water. To really, if you're going to play the game of dosing all elements, it's critical for you to absolutely know what your uranium level is in the salt you're using.
You love uranium.
To combat your consumption.
You love that word, uranium.
Another word. It's very close to another word.
Sorry. So I hope that answers your question, Perry. Definitely start pretty soon. As soon as the tank's cycled, and if you start reading the Moonshiners methods, they're going to tell you that as soon as the tank is cycled and you put your first corals in there, you need to start on the Moonshiners method, because there is dailies that your corals do consume, but they're consumed at a very low level. So you would want to start pretty much immediately and then move from there. All right, back to reactors. So you got a couple different things you could do with reactors. We'll just start with kalkwasser for one. So you've got your calc stirrer, your calc reactor, kalkwasser dosing reservoir, and kalkwasser ATO. That is the 4 ways that most people in this industry dose kalkwasser. And just to let you guys know, kalkwasser is calcium hydroxide. It is used for increasing the pH, alkalinity, and calcium in your tank, all with one item. Benefits to it: pH increase. That's the biggest thing, is as long as it's in a sealed container, it will increase the pH. Most companies, kalkwasser, mix around a 12.2 to a 12.8 pH. So when you're actually dosing your tank, it will increase those levels for you. And that's why for us in our store, we actually dose it at night to help elevate the pH at night, so we can keep the pH elevated and keep it stable throughout the day. One thing to note, when you're dosing with kalkwasser or even using a calcium reactor, you do have, and I repeat, have to have a pH probe. If you do not have a pH probe and your pH gets over 8.6 to 8.8, you will wipe out your tank. Your tank will be dead. Mm-hmm. No questions asked. Like, the highest I've ever seen living reef was 8.8, and it looked like crap. I mean, we were doing water changes quickly to get it down, and we were turning off all surface agitation to try to save the tank. But definitely need a pH probe for that. If you're going with a calcium reactor, you'll need 2 pH probes. You'll need a pH probe for your effluent, which is what's coming out of the calcium reactor, and you'll need a pH probe for what's in the tank as well.
What was that effluent word?
Effluent.
That sounds like another play on uranium and flagellants, but continue.
So there's a misconception on kalkwasser dosing. A lot of people tell you to put it in your auto top off and let it dose. And I know you've heard this one, Kyle. You've heard me talk about this a lot in the store. Downfalls to dosing it in your auto top off is I'm putting something that's very corrosive, extremely corrosive, in with a plastic pump. And if my auto top off gets stuck on, guess what? I just dropped 12.8 pH, which, I mean, most people, even on my 50 gallon, I have a 10 gallon top off container. So now I just dropped 10 gallons of 12.8 pH into my reef tank. Bye bye, tank, you're dead. So, auto top off is definitely not what we recommend. Calc stirrers, the way those guys work is you have a little magnetic pill that sits in the bottom of a reservoir or a mixing container that always spins. So what it does is it keeps the calc stirring, so the solution, the settled solution on the bottom, is always up into the water column. So you don't ever have to worry about it settling. But those are sealed containers, completely sealed containers, that actually have an auto top-off line coming into the top of that container, and then a return line coming out of it going into your sump. So the way those work is if your tank needs topped off, your auto top-off pump kicks on, pumps it through that calc stirrer, and pushes out calc solution into your tank. Does that make sense, Kyle?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you're looking like you're confused a little bit on that one. So now, calc reactor is personally my favorite, but I hate them at the same time. If I'm going to use any of the reactors, I'm going to use a calc reactor. But a calc reactor is where I mix it, let it settle, have an auto top off, do the same thing where it pumps in, pumps out. It's not my favorite, but if I was going to do any of the three, it would be that one. My favorite, and the way we do it on our 180 gallon tank, and the way I've done it my entire career in this industry, is I'll mix up 20 to 40 to 50 gallons at a time. I'll suck out that clear solution in the middle. It's about 3 inches up from the bottom and about 1.5 inches down from the top. I suck that entire solution out and then put it in a dosing reservoir. Put it in a dosing container, set it up to my dosing pump, set it and forget it. Benefits to that, I don't have any corrosive material going through anything metal. I don't have anything pumping and whatnot. It's being pumped in. There's no dilution. I'm not diluting my Kalkwasser every time I dose it. So I just set it up to, hey, my dosing container empties. I'm dosing 8,500 milliliters a day. It's a 20-gallon container. Every 10 days, I need to make a new Kalkwasser. So I don't have to worry about, oh crap, it's still dosing, but my solution's gone down to 0 and I'm just dosing top-off water. I don't have to worry about any of those things. Questions, concerns, clarification?
No, I think that pretty much settles it. What?
No, nothing.
The only thing that I'd add is there's a few things that's beautiful about Kalkwasser. The mixing portion is incredibly easy. It mixes incredibly fast, pending the type of Kalkwasser you're using.
Pending the brand.
And the beautiful, yeah, that's what I meant, brand. The beautiful thing about Kalkwasser, though, is when you mix it, outside of wasting money, it's a very easy thing to mix because water, or RO in this case, can only hold so much Kalkwasser. So outside of it precipitating out and falling to the bottom, it's incredibly easy to make, it's incredibly fast to make, and it's very little wasteful, and you know it's always going to be consistent.
And it's very potent.
Potent.
That's the thing I like about it is it gives me a consistent number. I will also say this. One thing I personally do with all of my tanks is I only allow the Kalkwasser to do 80% of my consumption. So if I'm running, alkalinity at 8.0 and it drops to 7, I'm only going to allow the Kalkwasser to replenish it up to 7.8. And the reason I do that is because Kalkwasser, again, is only doing pH, alkalinity, and calcium. It is not doing everything else. So all your trace elements, everything else is not being reintroduced into that tank. So I do run our Easy E and Easy Z, our 2-part, on top of that. So it also helps replenish those macro trace elements as well. Plus, if I run out of Kalkwasser tomorrow, because I'm out of town or something, it still gives my corals 24-hour dosing that they can be taking what's given to them immediately, instead of it bottoming the tank completely out.
what I'm a big fan of and more relatable to most, Kalkwasser's cheap.
Yes.
It is significantly cheaper than than dosing out there. So if you're using it to supplement and lessen what you're normally dosing, it is significantly cheaper, and it's a great way to dose at an affordable rate and still give your corals what you're looking for.
Now I gotta throw a caveat at you. Sorry, caveat at you. If you have a small tank, if you have a smaller tank, be careful dosing Kalkwasser. Just because Kalkwasser is, I would say, if it gets to the point where a 2-part or a 6-part is getting expensive, costing more than dog food for your fish tank. I mean, most people in America now have a dog. If you're in the hobby, you probably have a dog or a cat. If you're spending more on dosing elements for alkalinity, calcium, and magnesium for your tank than a bag of dog food a month, I would look into it. I probably wouldn't do Kalkwasser on anything smaller than a 50-gallon. But if you're a newbie in this industry or new to using Kalkwasser, I would not recommend it to anybody smaller than 120 gallon, just because you need the room for air. All right, I know we're getting close on time. I do want to hit calcium reactors real quick. Calcium reactors are for larger tanks. I'm just going to say this right now. They are for larger tanks. What a calcium reactor is we take crushed coral, dead coral, whatever type of coral you could find. I'm just going to call it right now, Reborn by Julian Sprung's best calcium reactor media out there. And end the question, drop mic drop, sorry anybody else, whatever. It is by far the best. The reason it's the best is it does contain all of your micro trace elements, and it is very easily dissolvable with CO2 injection, which is what you're using. You're taking a CO2 reservoir, container, canister, you're injecting CO2 into a calcium reactor. That calcium reactor's pH is around 4.8 to 6.2, and as that pH dissolves that media, your auto top-off pump pumps into it and pumps out effluent. That effluent is very low pH, so you have to be careful with pH in your tank as well, because it will bottom it out. But that's giving you alkalinity, calcium, magnesium, micro trace elements, and everything at a high concentration. So most people that run calcium reactors also run Kalkwasser. Just to throw that out there to you. They do that way the pH drop that happens with the low levels of effluent that's coming from the calcium reactor is adjusted for by what's coming in from the Kalkwasser. You will need multiple pH probes. You need a pH probe on the calcium reactor to see what the calcium reactor is at, because if it goes above 6.2, it is no longer breaking down the media that's inside the calcium reactor. And then you also need one in your tank to make sure it's not getting below 7.6. All right, Kyle, ask away your questions on this guy, because I know you've never played with one.
Why?
Consumption. Purely consumption. I mean, if you've got a 350, 500, 800 gallon tank, and I mean, take into account our 180, which had another 100-gallon tank on the back, so it was really almost a 300-gallon tank. We were dosing 8,500 milliliters of Kalkwasser a day. I could go into CO2, allow my top off and my CO2 to replenish 80 to 90% of my consumption, and then I'd only be down to 100, 150 milliliters a day of Kalkwasser. It is a lot more stable, and it's breaking down true elements that your corals can 100% consume. There is no fake anything in this. I am taking a coral, disintegrating it, releasing those trace elements and calcium and magnesium and everything right back into your tank where your corals can immediately consume it. Does that answer the why or no?
It does. It's still, I don't know. It's my ignorance speaking, but it just doesn't quite. I understand the why, I understand the what, but I don't know. I don't think that's for me.
So, and it's not for everybody. If somebody had a big tank, I would definitely recommend it to people. Only because of the consumption. I'm trying to find a good one on saltwaterquarium.com to pull up for people right now. Only for the consumption. Here's a good one. Here's Reef Octopuses. Play. Alright, so this one here, this is the Reef Octopus Reactor 9-inch Barrios from Reef Octopus. It runs $1,030. But they recommend this guy for a 300, 400, or 500 gallon tank. So let's just pull up this picture real quick here. So what you have here is right here on the left. You can't see my mouse. But on the left of the screen there, you have a little bitty nipple that comes in. That is where your CO2 is injected. That clear tube that's in the middle, that small clear tube, that's a bubble counter. So what we're doing there is we're actually counting how many bubbles a second of CO2 that we're introducing into that the chamber on the right. The big chamber on the right, which is where all your media is going to go. Do they show this filled with media? No, they don't. So you would be able to see how much media you have in there. The bubble counter allows it to, depending on your bubble rate, will determine how fast it gets broken down and gets consumed. And then that pump that's at the bottom is what's actually sucking water in. There's a nipple in front of it. That's where our water is being sucked in and then being sucked out. Blown into the chamber, and then the chamber at the top is getting pushed out with the clear effluent going back to your tank. So you have a pH probe in there at the very top. You can see that black nipple up there. That's for your pH probe to see what the pH level is inside of that chamber to make sure it actually has enough CO2 to do its job. So I kind of hope that answered anybody's questions with the calcium reactor. Again, I know, Kyle, you don't know much about calcium reactors or calc reactors or stirrers or anything. So I know that was a lot of me talking, and I kind of went pretty quick on them. But if anybody has any questions on those guys, please, please, please hit me up. And Perry Reef, I know you're setting up a 240, and I know you've asked a few different times about calc reactors and stirrers and things like that. So if you have questions, bro, please, 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 please reach out and ask me. I am pretty knowledgeable when it comes to these things. I've used both of them. Never been a fan of calcium reactors, but they do a great job for some people, and especially if you get good equipment. When it comes to life support for your tank, calcium reactors, calc reactors, things like that, don't cheap out. Do not cheap out. These things are your life support for your tank. I mean, we don't go to other countries. I was about to say a country. We don't go to other countries for open heart surgery. We find board certified people. We find good equipment, good people to do those type of surgeries for us. Spend the money on the equipment to do it the right way. Dosing pumps, you can get away with cheap ones. I mean, I know at a lot of our stores, they run the J-Bal DP4s. It's a good dosing pump. However, it does require good maintenance, a lot more maintenance than a higher end one. So make sure, do your research, spend the money on your life support. It is the most important thing for your aquarium. And Kyle, you keep wanting to say something. Go ahead.
And if y'all are interested, we can always shoot some short videos, some shorts for YouTube, or some clips, 5-10 minute clips on specific things. If that's something y'all actually want to hear, we can do a full breakdown. I will go buy a calcium reactor and set one up on the 180 or my dad's 300 just to show y'all how it works, so we can do deep dives on this. When we do these 30-minute, 45-minute podcasts, we're trying to stay brief and keep it flowing. But if you want that deeper dive, we can definitely make that happen. You just got to let us know.
Yeah, just reach out, tell us. I can do dives on. We can do dives on any of this information. Kyle, I know you're new in it.
If you have a question, if you guys have a question, you're not the only one with that question.
Yes,
and we don't know the question unless you ask it. So if you ask it, and it becomes desired to see these videos of us actually doing it at the store, showing off what we're doing, how we're doing it at home or at the store or at customers' tanks, we will happily do that if it's something you want.
Yes, please reach out, let us know. Yeah. We are doing it for nothing. We're doing it for your guys' entertainment and your knowledge.
Exactly.
Because we want you guys to have a very nice tank and a successful reef tank. We want you guys to stay in this hobby. And that's the whole reason that we are doing these podcasts and these lives for you guys, is so you can understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, and answer any questions that you guys may have. So, on that
And just
note...
for the love of the hobby.
Oh yeah, we forgot one thing. There was one more thing that Kyle, CO2 scrubbers, we'll do that on another episode. There was one thing that Kyle did ask about, and that was amino acids. Amino acids, coral foods, things
Yes.
like that. So those are things we didn't cover in this episode, mainly because today we were trying to stay on the top 3, alkalinity, calcium, and magnesium. The reason we stayed on those 3 is because amino acids and coral foods and other things like that is more for coral nutrition. It's more for photosynthesis and the consumption of chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, which is a totally another conversation and another podcast we will have. Kyle, I don't know if we want to do coral foods, feeding corals next, if that's actually
Yes,
a good
I was just
idea.
thinking that.
I think it kind of goes hand in hand with the dosing conversation we have. So
Because
on our next episode, we will talk about why you need to feed corals, the reason to feed corals, and the reason fish poop is not adequate enough for your corals.
And if y'all have a specific food you want us to use at the shop, feed it, show feeding responses, things like that, let us know. I'll go buy multiple different types of foods and we'll test them out. We'll see, and we'll talk each brand. I won't talk pros and cons, but we'll talk the brands and talk what they do.
Alright, I see the guy that dumped the aragonite for the calcium reactor into his tank. In my opinion, it didn't seem to do too much. So what you're talking about right there, Perry Reefs, I'm going to put it up on the podcast real quick. Alright, so I see the guy that dumped the aragonite for the calcium reactor into his tank. So what you're talking about right there, Perry, is you have a lot of grow out companies, people that do it in their homes and their stores that have grow out tanks. They run the Reborn, which is Julian Sprung's. Liam, go away.
Sorry.
Sorry.
The kid's annoying us.
A kid decided he wanted to play darts right beside the microphone where I'm playing because he's bored. Sorry. So he did the Julian Sprung's Reborn, and the point of that is, yes, you're right. Just dumping it in the tank is not going to do much of anything. All it's going to do is help increase the alkalinity a hair and the pH level a little bit. Excuse me. The bigger reason he's doing it is because corals, when they're growing on aragonite structures, they grow 10 times faster than when they grow on a ceramic or a piece of plastic or something like that. And that's because as they're growing, they're pulling the needed material out of that aragonite structure itself along with the water column. So they're having double input of the media and the nutrients and stuff that they need to create their orthorhombic material, their structures, their skeletons, and all that kind of stuff. So it's very important that if you are doing mushrooms and zoanthids and montes and things like that, and you're trying to grow them, they do grow better on an aragonite structure versus a ceramic frag plug. So that's why you're seeing that, Perry. I know exactly what you're talking about. I have a feeling I know who you're talking about as well. So that's a great question. If anybody else has questions like that, please, please, please ask. Those things are good. Just to throw a little caveat on there, in the freshwater world, if you have African cichlids or South American cichlids, we actually tell you to put crushed coral in your tank. And the whole reason for that is because it's an aragonite structure. It's got an elevated pH. So it'll actually bring the pH in a freshwater tank up to 7.8 to 8.4, which is what's needed for those type of animals, instead of having to use a liquid pH up.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know you didn't know the answer to that one, Kyle. That's why I jumped on that one. So, all right, guys. Next week we're going to talk about coral feeding, why to feed, what to feed, how to feed.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. 2 weeks. Yeah, he's always got to correct me on that. 2 weeks, we'll talk about that. So, until next time, guys, stay salty.
Stay opinionated. Maybe.
I'm hitting the button. It takes a second. I should set.